This article gives further evidence that suggests that Tudor England was ethnically diverse and viewed race differently compared to the ideas that started in the 18th century. This evidence is the remains of two crew members recovered from the Mary Rose ship, which sunk in 1545. The first crew member was named Henry and was originally recognized as showing signs of African ancestry by experts. This was further proved in his DNA from his teeth, which indicated similarities with Moroccan, Mozambique, and Near Eastern populations. In addition, looking at his mitochondrial DNA, researchers were able to conclude his mother possibly originated from southern Europe, North Africa, and the Near East. Nevertheless, the oxygen isotopes in his teeth indicate he spent most of his life in England. To continue, experts say the other crew member could have originated from North Africa. However, southern Europe is also likely. To add, he grew up far from the coast as his diet did not indicate it was drawn from the sea. To conclude, these new findings are added to the past evidence of ethnic diversity in Tudor England. This article is a part of the archaeological branch of anthropology as it explores the culture of Tudor England. Thanks to this research, we get a better insight into how the different races played a role in their society. Furthermore, through the excavation of these remains, we are able to understand more aspects of their culture that has no written record. Lastly, the intention of the inquiry was clearly stated at the beginning of the article. The intention of the inquiry was that the remains of two crew members on the Mary Rose may be of African heritage, which would add to the evidence that Tudor England was ethnically diverse. To collect this data, the researchers had to recover the remains from the sunken ship, such as the skull and their teeth. Using the teeth, the researchers were able to extract their nuclear DNA, mitochondrial DNA, and oxygen isotopes. Also, by analyzing the skull of Henry, experts were able to identify signs of African ancestry. By analyzing the nuclear DNA, researchers were able to compare the genetic information with that of Moroccan, Mozambique, and Near Eastern populations. Similarly, by analyzing the mitochondrial DNA, researchers sorted them into a group that includes Southern Europe, North Africa, and the Near East. Lastly, the oxygen isotopes verified what was already assumed, that they grew up in England. After evaluating the DNA data, researchers found it likely the two crew members originated from North Africa, which proves the hypothesis that Tudor England was ethnically diverse. Finally, the article presented the conclusion that the findings join other evidence that proves Tudor England was ethnically diverse. However, they also stated the limitations, as the ratio of ethnicities on board the Mary Rose were not necessarily a representation of Tudor England. To begin, this article relates to the archaeological concepts and material learned in class, as through their findings the researchers were able to gain more information and a better understanding of the Tudor culture. Along with archaeology, the article also relates to human variation branch of anthropology, as it focuses on the physical differences of Tudor England's population, and more specifically how ethnically diverse they were. To continue, this new data fits with several other findings of the same nature. For example, the book Black Tudors: The Untold Story by Miranda Kaufman. I believe this article contributes to our knowledge of Tudor England as it shows us how ethnically diverse their society was, and gives us further insight into their culture, as well as it further proves our knowledge that race is a social construct, which is shown by the Tudors' different views of race compared to those constructed during the 18th century. This article now raises the question of why Black Tudors are not represented in historical works, as well as were they treated any differently than the other races, and finally, what other ethnicities were represented in Tudor England. Finally, I believe this article is relevant because it proves that race is a social construct that humans created, as well as we can live in a world and we have lived in a world without these social constructs.